Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for being here for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the warning chart, winter storm warnings out for snow and blowing snow here west coast, especially tonight, and then extending eastward into the eastern interior, on down in toward the greater Fairbanks area up to the Brooks Range and eastward on into Canada. Also up here, the central western Arctic coast, winter storm warning, actually could be a blizzard warning, one or the other there. Either way, snow, blowing snow, visibility's down to a quarter mile or less at times on the west side here. Not so bad on the east side, but still enough for an advisory for the Beaufort Sea coastline there. Across the north slope into the, the north slope there up to about the crest of the Brooks Range. And then down to the south, looks like the Kuskokwim Valley's out of it, so it's mostly along the Yukon River Valley. Winter weather advisories here right on out to the coastline. And putting satellites together here yesterday, we had this weak system dragging across south central Alaska, most of the moisture up to the northeast there, and some more clouds rotating in to the northwest coast, coming down in across the Kobuk and into the Koyukuk Valley and the Brooks Range there. A break here along the southwest coast, Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, and then the big storm coming in from the west there, pushing quite a impressive looking cloud shield eastward and mostly northward. Yesterday the front just passing Shimia late in the afternoon. Otherwise the southeast coast pretty good. Some clouds up here over the northern areas, more in the way of sunshine on down to the south with light winds. Areas of clouds here forming during the afternoon, low pressure developing. That moved inland overnight last night and slid southeastward throughout the day today with lingering showers down to the south, but clearing out quite nicely. Definitely drying out up over the northern areas with more offshore flow, cooler temperatures. Not too bad around Yakutat, on up into the Copper River Basin, picking up a few more clouds there. But you can see the front driving eastward through the central interior with the front right about in this position at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And then that also moisture spreading up to the Arctic coast there. The main low center back here coming northward there into the Russian Far East, and then a lot of clouds, snow showers, windy conditions, and actually rain showers. I noticed there at St. Lawrence Island, and even a mixed condition showing up late this afternoon over the Seward Peninsula, and then quite a bit of moisture and gusty winds here from the southwest coast, actually in the interior all the way down to the Pribilofs, with the front dragging across the central Aleutians. And it started out pretty nice here in Kodiak. Clouds increased throughout the day. Could be a few showers developing, but definitely the heavier precipitation still well back to the west. And then some banding of the clouds here across the Alaska Peninsula on down the eastern Aleutians, and a general increase in the mid and high level clouds overrunning the areas of low clouds and fog that we're seeing in Cook Inlet, especially earlier this morning and overnight last night. On the chart today, roughly the position of the front right through here, again pushing eastward, northward, winds kicking up on the western Arctic coast today, and then a good southwest push behind that from St. Lawrence Island, bringing the warmer air up and changing snow to rain here across the southwest interior on out to Savunga and Gamble. Snow, blowing snow early, but the temperatures rising a little above freezing there, so that kind of puts the end to any significant blowing snow, but still enough cold air up there keeping blowing snow conditions on the western Arctic coast across the northwest interior. And again, some clouds coming in, areas of snow into the central interior, but a lot more intermittent, scattered, and light. And that trying to approach the western Alaska Range this afternoon. Otherwise, good high pressure over the Copper River Basin. Trying to keep the clouds out, not really doing that great of a job, but definitely keeping it dry with light winds and an increase in the winds here. Not too bad though over the Panhandle with the sunshine as this low center continues to move off to the southeast. Whatever precipitation is still lingering there at this time will end here during the evening hours. And that front, again, an area of rain right across the Pribilofs on down, mostly into the AKwx area over toward Amchitka. And for tonight, that whole system will drive eastward, and the winter storm warnings again, central interior up toward the Brooks Range tonight. And again, continuing back here to the west due to this other low here and those gusty southwest winds blowing on in from the St. Lawrence Island area northward across the Seward Peninsula. So snow and blowing snow and pretty significant accumulations with that system, while the other one pushes eastward here. Front trying to get across the Alaska Range into the Susitna Valley, either or as far as the rain or snow goes. Doesn't look too heavy at all. Some of that could spill in to the Copper River Basin area, mostly up along the mountains there. And what would fall would be light south of the mountains. Chance of rain increases here for Bristol Bay with those southwesterly winds and the front sagging southward or southeastward. So breaking out to a few snow showers here over the Yukon Delta up into the interior. But again, St. Lawrence Island in toward the Seward Peninsula, especially the Seward Peninsula, quite windy tonight, snow and blowing snow. And then this front appears to be stalled over the Pribilof Islands, back down across AKwx and Atka. Higher pressure now developing there over the western Bering Sea, also south of, well south of Kodiak Island. And for the Panhandle, good high pressure in there, so the clearing will continue. You can see the moisture shifts all off to the southeast, clearing skies all the way down across the Queen Charlotte. So a mostly clear night, and the wind's really not all that strong at all. Actually pretty light here, even for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound into south central Alaska. But the Arctic coast, again, the west side there under that winter storm warning tonight for those for the snow and blowing snow there as that front slowly edges northward. And for Sunday, tomorrow, still pretty windy along the Arctic coast with areas of snow and blowing snow, but the heavier conditions, again, mostly on the central and west side, but you'll see blowing snow probably all the way over to Demarcation Point. Central interior with the front pushing through late tonight, early tomorrow rapidly. Just be clouds and a few snow showers left behind across the Tanana Valley, down into the Susitna Valley. And look for an increase in the clouds here across the southeast coast with maybe a chance of showers developing. And actually that could be either or in the form of rain or snow, but it'll be pretty light if anything even reaches the coast there for the Panhandle. Otherwise, weak development here. The northern part of the front races eastward and actually gets this portion is left behind. It breaks apart. Very weak low center here over the southwest interior. So areas of rain or snow, light rain or snow, not too bad on the winds, and that front will spread some moisture into the Fox Islands. Light rain, light winds along with it, maybe a few rain or snow showers around the Pribilofs, otherwise mostly dry. Good westerly flow continues here across the Bering Sea, so another trough will bring another round of snow and a little bit of an increase in the winds, but not too bad here. The strongest winds will be up here to the north along the coast, but look for some occasional snow from the Norton Sound area right up across all of the northwest interior. And then high pressure now in control of the western Bering Sea here, and even the Aleutians from AKwx on out to Shemya, and that's helping to push this front eastward a little bit there. And then going into Monday, actually this low here is going to start dropping southward with an upper level trough, so that'll mean a push of cold air once again coming southward in the west here on out into the Bering Sea, looking something like this. The surface will actually tracks off to the east here over the upper Yukon Valley, northerly flow behind that, high pressure out over the western Bering Sea right up into Canada. So we're getting flow right out of the Arctic through the Bering Strait here, so each trough passing by will be a surge of colder air behind it, and it looks pretty snowy here along the western coastal areas, mostly actually inland there to the Seward Peninsula from the Noatak Valley, and also along the Brooks Range. Snow continues there for the central areas like Ahnehtuvik on eastward, and also on the upslope areas of the north side there. And periods of snow, occasional snow, light snow here into the Tanana Valley, and snow showers extending southward, mostly along the western Alaska Range. But with the trough to the west here, could see an increasing area of snow developing here over northern Cook Inlet from about the Kenai Peninsula, maybe as far north as Willow, over to possibly Palmer, but staying dry, northwest winds along the North Gulf Coast there, with mostly cloudy skies on down to Kodiak. Even less in the way of clouds at Prince William Sound. No clouds to the southeast coast from Yakutat on down, and again high pressure out to the west, keeping it pretty nice wind-wise. Probably see some small craft advisory winds from the Pribilofs on up to St. Matthew Island, and basically that wind pattern on in, just colder air coming down with those winds there, so we'll see the heavy freezing spray start to increase once again, as well as the ice edge will begin to start another push to the south after that big retreat to the north we saw during the last week. And then out west there, the next front starts to affect the Shimei-Attu area, some increasing winds and a chance of rain. Temperatures this afternoon, southeast coast, not too bad, upper 30s to lower 40s, 42 at Wrangell, and a 41 at Juneau, 43 both at Skagway and Yakutat, 44 over at Cordova. Upper 20s, Susitna Valley down into Cook Inlet, Seward and Homer up to 39, 25 Gulkana, and mostly in the lower 30s there for the Tanana Valley, 40 Mile Country, although Eagle at 24, but mid to upper 30s on out to the west, especially down to the southwest, with Nome inching its way above freezing this afternoon, and 30s all the way up into the Kobuk Valley with Battles at 28, 30 degrees at Fort Yukon, 21 at Ahnehtuvik, and then the Arctic coast around 15 below from the central areas eastward, and then edging up towards 0 point lay at about 5 below, significantly warmer here across the northwest with looks like 32 there at Kotzebue, 34 Shishmaref, and Buckland 37 degrees, while Nome had 33, same thing at Savunga. Right at the freeze point there for Bethel, mid-30s along the coast, upper 30s for the Pribilofs, 46 degrees today in Atka, and that was the warm spot in the state. For the lows tonight, mild here in the west, eastward, 20s all the way across the Yukon Flats area, below zero, but not much different from what you saw this afternoon up there in the Arctic coast. A little chillier, but mostly on the plus side of zero for the Copper River Basin, 20s for the Panhandle. Highs, 30s to lower 40s for the southeast coast, mid to upper 20s or 20s there for the Copper River Basin, on up across the Northway area to Eagle. Milder conditions, mid-30s to lower 40s, especially along the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay area, on out to the west, with 20s here over the Bering Sea, and a shade below zero for the Arctic coast. Flying weather, moisture edging eastward here, so swath of IFR from the Tanana Valley down, mostly along the Alaska Range, back to the west out to the Pribilofs with the front, and then the south side of the Brooks Range into the Koyukuk Valley, North Slope, Arctic coast, look for a lot of IFR. Tomorrow afternoon, not much change there. Still a lot of IFR, especially on the west side up there, but breaking out down across the Seward Peninsula, and a big swath here over the southwest interior up to the Alaska Range, Iliamna area on southwestward, now south of the Pribilofs, in toward mostly Atka, slipping on into Nikolsky. Passes shaping up like this, Ahnehtuvik IFR, Adigan, once again IFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, Marsville becoming IFR, lowest conditions on the western approaches of all three passes, including rainy. Windy, occasionally marginal, and for Isabel, looks pretty good for VFR. Mentasta, though, marginal. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, as well as Chilkoot and White. Freezing levels, 2 to 6,000 feet here across the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Surface northward there to Nunivak Island. Kodiak Island kind of hugging the coast there on down to the southeast. And icing here with the front, what's left of it from the southwest coast to the central Aleutians. More extensive areas here, especially up over the central interior on back to the northwest. Upper level wind flow chart, high pressure and a ridge up into the southern interior, but a good flow, actually a strong jet from the west coming over the top of that ridge right into the interior, turning northwest here. This will keep the southeast coast dry, and then more moisture coming in, but that pattern's going to change later the next day with a ridge building out here to the west. And for 9,000 feet, westerlies 30 to 40 knots right through the central interior, easterlies up to 40 on the central Arctic coast. Light winds with building high pressure out over the western Bering Sea, 25 knotters for the Alaska Peninsula, 35 to 40 Barren Islands, back toward Kamishak Bay. 3,000 foot winds, strong west-southwest, 25 to 40 knots into the interior. 35 knotters here coming across the Kenai Peninsula, 20 to 25 for the Panhandle. Light winds out to the west. Turbulence, moderate chop here. Yukon Flats westward across the Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley to the Bering Strait, and also here for the Aleutian Range and Kodiak Island. And after the break, I'll return with a look at the marine forecasts.
Hello again, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. And joining us again talking about the augmented reality sandbox is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. And he's actually talking about a project from AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. A lot of acronyms, but some really fun stuff today, right, Eric?
You bet. We've got a learning tool that is a tool that's fun to use, and it really has a relevance to actually daily lives of anyone who goes outside and sees lumpy topography in Alaska. We've got a lot of mountains and such. You know, when I was younger and go on your first hike in the hills, say, you're given, maybe you're in the Boy Scouts or you get at the kiosk at the trailhead, a topographic map, a flat piece of paper with all these lines on it, bullseyes, long lines that curve back on themselves, say, perhaps things that look like this. A quadrangle or a topographic map. We've got here just to illustrate a couple of examples near Denali. Alaska has so much topography, so many mountains. And what are all these lines that we see? It can be tough to know what this means the first time you look at it. What we've got, all these lines represent lines of where the elevation of the topography goes through a certain level above sea level, say that this line represents where the mountains have gone from below 1,000 feet, mean sea level, up through 1,000 feet and above. That's your 1,000-foot contour. And when the mountain keeps going up, you're up to 1,200 feet, 1,400 feet, and so on. And that's how you get this little bullseye around the peak of a mountain.
Kind of makes layered slices, right?
Kind of like layered slices. Nice way to look at that. And when you see the lines are closer together, you're going up more steeply. If the mountain rises more slowly, it takes you longer in horizontal space to go through those different vertical increments. So
that is really hard to visualize.
Right. Imagine you're looking at a 2D piece of paper, two-dimensional piece of paper, but you're trying to understand what the three-dimensional world looks like. Well, enter the augmented reality sandbox. Yes, what is that? It is right here. We have the sandbox with us today, Sandbox 2.0, portable version.
Sweet.
Built up at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And we've got a couple of folks helping out today.
Let's see, Alana Valaji, and she's a mechanical engineering student from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. If you want to give us a thumbs up there, Alana, thanks for helping us out today. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator from AKwx, also helping us out today. Thanks, Courtney.
And this tool here has a Microsoft Kinect to sense the level of sand in this sandbox. And then the Kinect feeds its information into a computer that then sends a signal to a projector to draw the appropriate topographic lines on this topography. The fun thing about this, as we can see here, is that the sandbox and its Kinect and its projector, they all work as a team. So here we've got a mountain in the middle of the sandbox. What if we took down the mountain to some degree? Watch as the software responds and redraws the topography.
Kind of a caldera forming there.
There you go, And what's fun about the sandbox too is it knows that gravity flows downhill, and we've got some water that's actually down in the lowest elevations. And what's happening now is we're making it rain a little bit. We'll fill up rain into that elevated lake bed, that caldera, as you said. And so now water is pooled up there. And what if you gouged out an outlet channel?
Glacial dam release.
There you go. The water flows out. What we're seeing here is a tool that allows people to touch and connect, Microsoft Connect, RRR, to connect two-dimensional topographic maps like what we have here, these flat things on a piece of paper, to the real three-dimensional world. I think this sandbox's real particular application as a learning tool to young people is what does a two-dimensional map mean when it's trying to represent the three-dimensional world?
Right.
This sandbox is kind of both at once. It's actually three-dimensional, lumpy topography there, the sand, but it's got these lines drawn on the three-dimensional sand that would be on a two-dimensional piece of paper.
Wow, that is a huge leap from the learning that we experienced when we were younger to how children and even adults are visualizing in these new forms of technology. It allows that to kind of reshape their thinking and visualize this in a very useful and absolutely hands-on way. It's amazing.
It's a hands-on tool, and
it's hard for me to sit here and not go play with that.
Well, that's what happened at Dehne, up at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks, when the first model was being made, the prototype with plywood and such. We had professional adult professor types had heard about this, and they came by because they wanted to see how it worked.
Okay.
And everyone becomes that idealistic, wonder-filled youngster.
Sure.
And you just can't help but play with that, and to see how it reacts in time, and it's a dynamic learning tool. And it responds.
That's exactly the word.
And you wonder what applicabilities beyond a teaching tool for topography can it have. You can see how in Alaska we have inundation mapping is an issue. If you had water slosh inland, say in a coastal flooding event on the western coast of Alaska or the Arctic coast, you could see this. The concept is illustrated here as an introductory learning method. I think this is a potentially good outreach tool for all of us in Alaska.
Okay, so not only just a topographical sense, a mapping sense, maybe something that leads into understanding of how geographic information systems work with GIS, but also geology, if we wanted to get into kind of the formations and the bigger land masses and the representation of the 2D map. We could go into hydrology, which is very important in Alaska, of course. And even just understanding weather sense. Mounding up a big pile of sand could be that Arctic high pressure system sitting on top of Fairbanks, and the voids would be low pressure systems. This can go a lot of different directions.
Yes, exactly. It's not just landforms, but pressure has contours of high pressure and low pressure. And I wish I had had this kind of a learning tool when I was taking Meteorology 101 back 25 years ago.
Wow.
Would have been helpful, I think.
Probably would have gotten a better grade, yeah. Okay, thank you so much for coming by, Eric, and Alana and Courtney, thank you so much for your help there in the sandbox. We are going to play in the sandbox a little bit more coming up tomorrow on our next edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We hope you join us for that. In the meantime, make sure you go to alaska.edu/EPSCOR. That's alaska.edu. EPSCOR to learn more information about what we're doing with this augmented reality sandbox around Alaska. We'll see you next time on Alaska Weather Facts.
Welcome back. Marine forecast here, pretty uniform wind pattern, northwest 20 knots, a little lighter up in the north coast with the seas 8 feet, building to 11 feet down south. Light winds mostly out of the north over the inside waters at 10 to 15 knots. And seas running at about 2 to 3 feet. And moving on to Monday's forecast, we still have the northwest wind here down on the south coast at about 27 to 8 foot seas, becoming a little more variable up to the north. Otherwise, on the inside waters, Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal coming up to about 20 knots, but northwest 10 for Stevens Passage, and call it 15 out of the northwest for Clarence Strait. Up here with the kind of a low pressure center developing back in this area here, the winds go northwest, start to turn westerly, and then become southeast at about 15. Otherwise, Prince William Sound tomorrow, north 15 knots, northwest 20 here for the Arctic coast, but gales into the picture here. Minimum gales western, not the Arctic coast, North Gulf coast here down across the Barren Islands. Westerlies at 30 there, east side of Kodiak. Small crafts out of the southwest for Shelikof Strait. And then westerly winds at 25 knots, so small craft advisories south of the Forelands here, right on into Kamishak Bay, otherwise light and variable north of the Forelands. And then for Monday, we've got north winds at about 10 knots here for northern Cook Inlet, 15 knots out of the north of Prince William Sound, and only 20 the way it looks at this point in time, which looks like a pretty good forecast actually here for the North Gulf Coast. The west side here kicks into a full gale out of the northwest in this zone. Almost a storm, but not quite there for the Barren Islands. Seas about 11 feet in through here. And then for the zone there, east of Kodiak Island, westerlies 30 knots, good for small craft advisories. That same condition also will exist over Shelikof Strait, and then kick it up to 40 knots there for Kamishak Bay with 17-foot seas, and northwest 30 south of the Forelands there for the Southern Cook Inlet area. Bristol Bay for tomorrow, west winds at 25 knots, small craft advisories everywhere else. And then for Monday, we've got northwesterlies, 20 to 30 knots here for Bristol Bay and the peninsula. And for the Aleutians, Fox Island, southwest 25, becoming northeast with a high building over the southwest bearing, and then getting pretty light here out towards Shemya. And for Monday, big increase in those winds, 35 to 40 knots there, west of Adak to Attu Island, small craft advisories, actually all the way across the Fox Islands due to those 8-foot seas. And for the southwest coast, west 15 to 20 knots, northwest 20 for the Pribilofs, 30 knotters here, St. Matthew Island, on up toward the Bering Strait. And for Monday, small craft or brisk wind advisories all along the southwest coast from St. Lawrence Island, small crafts here, St. Matthew Island, northwesterlies 25 on down across the Pribilofs. And for the Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories on the east side there, kicking up to gales on the central coast to 40 knots on the west side, and then swinging around to the southwest, 25 to 30 knots from Wales to Cape Beaufort. And then those become northeast again, low pressure pulling eastward here, light west winds for Kotzebue Sound, light northerlies here for the central and eastern Arctic coast. And for tonight, winter storm warnings here through the central interior up to the Brooks Range, this front driving eastward with a lot of snow into the Tanana Valley, much weaker and more mixed in the precipitation on out to the southwest, dry over the Panhandle. That mostly holds. We'll look for an increase in the clouds here during the day. Rain and snow, southwest Alaska, pretty snowy, but not as much. Lighter winds with even some possible clearing in the Tanana Valley. Next day, pattern change, high pressure building, cold air comes surging southward with areas of snow and a tightening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.